Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jet Boardman, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have Westlee Tonga, the founder of Halo Sales and Strategy, joining us. Westlee brings a unique blend of experience as a former NFL player from the University of Utah, current director of sales development at NICE CX1, and the visionary behind the Halo Sales and Strategy, a consulting firm revolutionizing how businesses build revenue through fractional sales services. We'll explore his founding story, how his company is transforming sales development, and his vision for scaling his high impact business. So let's dive in. Wellesley, welcome to the Founders Future.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here, man. Cool. Well, we'll just start off right from the beginning. Can you take us back to the beginning? What specific problem in the sales revenue generation landscape, perhaps around like pipeline development, team performance, inspired you to start Halo's sales and strategy?
Yeah, it happened pretty organically for me. I was at a couple different tech companies. I've been in tech for about 10 years now. I started at Nuvi, and then I went to a company that was in more operations, but it was app based. It was kind of like Uber, but for school districts. And from there, I would just go around the country for a portion of the year and essentially start the company from the ground up. We'd go and get contracts signed. I'd go and hang out at coffee shops and recruit 30 drivers in a weekend. Got used to kind of the startup model from there. And then I got back into tech. So I moved back to Utah. We were living in Virginia at the time. I went to a company called Weave. And then from there, I jumped to another startup and then went to NICE. And while I was at NICE, NICE is a big, giant corporation. And I had a bunch of friends that were starting to do their own things. I had family members that were branching off and creating companies or investing. And so they would pull me in because they knew I was in sales just to ask questions about go-to-market strategy and things like that. And as I was sitting across from these people, like just multimillionaires that had lots of capital, lots of skill in their own industries, I started realizing like they don't know what I know about like sales and go-to-market strategy. And like, why
Mhm.
don't you already know this? Because these are pretty basic principles that I'm sharing on, you know, partner programming or setting up like sales funnels, things of that nature. And over time, like after a dozen or so meetings, I was like, you guys should pay me for this. And so I I created an LLC and I just kind of started doing it on the side. And then recently, when I left NICE, I just went into it full time, and so that's what I've been doing the last few months. But yeah, it's been really fun. That's kind of how I scratched my professional itch in the last couple years. Humongous companies are really not my bag, and so I would go and help startups. I helped a lot of like first-time founders or technical founders, especially that didn't know exactly how to sell. I'd help them create their demos, create their like their go-to-market strategy with the sales side, craft their decks, just things like that. And then like hire their first salesman or hire an SDR, show them how like what SDR management is, things like that. But that's how I get started. And since then, it's just kind of grown fairly naturally. It's been exclusively just first or second person like referrals. And then just recently I stood up a website and I'm just going at it a little bit harder now.
Cool. Very cool, man. So I mean, you've kind of touched almost all the big names on Silicon Slopes, and then you're also getting into all of like the little guys around the area, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty tight-knit group.
Yeah.
Once you're in, if you have a good name, then it's great. If you don't, then it's probably pretty awful. But
Yeah.
I've been really fortunate to be at some really cool companies. And initially I had planned on going the typical route where you start as an individual contributor, you work your way up, you get into leadership, you move into like mid-level management and then to executive leadership, and then you go somewhere and you kind of start it over, but you go in with equity. And so in going through that little exercise, that kind of occurred when I was starting to make the more planned jumps. That was in like 2021. When I started getting a little bit more strategic and going after stuff, and when I started consulting, I just started seeing seeing everything tighten up because I had been in tech from 18 to 20, and I saw the giant valuations of companies getting 32x on 32x multiple very early on. Like it was pretty ridiculous, and I think everybody kind of realized that. But once I started consulting some of these founders and realizing like, oh, venture capital, private equity, they actually do care about profitability now. The My model and my career path, it changed a little bit because I didn't think I would make as much money doing that route as I would have. And so I wasn't quite ready to jump off and be a founder myself yet. But I realized that for the style of wealth that I was looking for in my life, I would not be able to get there in a W-2. I'd have
Mhm.
to create ownership. And so I actually went back to school. I finished my MBA at BYU here next month because I was anticipating just being a great number two, a great advisor. And in doing so, I've been able to see a bunch of really cool entrepreneurial minds at work and be able to help them with their model. Now I'm a little bit more ready to do it myself. And so that's the plan going forward. I'm going to scale this business up. And we'll see where it goes from there. But that's kind of been the path thus far.
Nice, man. Nice. BYU business program is no joke, man. It's a good program. It's really,
I
really good.
loved it. Honestly, I was a little skeptical. I'm an avid learner in my own right. I feel like I listen to, probably 20, 50 books a year on Audible, which I think many people do, lots of podcasts, things like that. I enjoy networking and meeting people. And so honestly, I was a little skeptical about the curriculum, like what I would like the benefit of an MBA, which I think a lot of people that were in that boat are, where in reality, I think everyone knows you can get all of the knowledge base that you're getting from organized school at the library. Like
Yeah.
anybody who's watched Good Will Hunting knows that.
Yeah, man.
Um, the reality is, though, you're probably not going to do it. At least that was the case for me, where I went back to school to learn finance, to learn how to read a P&L more properly, and to frankly tap into the BYU network. I played football at the University of Utah, and honestly, I was always jealous of the BYU network. It seemed like those guys were always getting, magic handshakes and things like
Yeah.
that. But um, so I wanted to tap into that, and I did that, and it's been great. It really has. I've loved it.
That's cool, man. I actually did I did a business minor at BYU. So there's always something coming out
Very
of the
cool.
Tanner building, right? There's
Yeah.
always something new in that building happening. It's a different little environment for sure.
Yeah, and people seem very like willing to help. Like
Yeah.
they want to connect to the school. Some like you have to find it in as it is with anything, but if you're willing to put in a little bit of the footwork, I feel like the lever is pretty long there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Well, jumping over to sports, I mean, your background is rooted in athletics, right? I mean, you played tight end at the University of Utah and in the NFL. Before transitioning to sales leadership, how do you feel like how did that shape you um, to have the decision to launch a consulting firm?
So specifically to sales, I feel like it's highly applicable. And one of the things that I've liked, I spent a lot of my career in sales development in particular. And I've loved that because I was able to offer entry level opportunities to people that are making the transition from sports into the professional world. And
Mhm.
so that's pretty highly applicable. Where, as we all know, and as is shared very often, um, I think the greatest similarities within the professional world are, but at least from sports, are in sales because in its purest form, it's a meritocracy. You eat what you kill. If you work hard and you have a little bit of talent, then you're successful. And if you don't work as hard, you're not as successful. In the same way, if you work hard on the field, you typically see the result. And if you don't work very hard, you typically see the result. And there's outliers where you have freakish athletes or you have people that are the son of the founder or whatever you will, and they have a little special niche. But by and large, it's very much a meritocracy. And so the transition was pretty easy once it clicked. I think a lot of athletes they struggle when they get out of sports, whatever the sport is, because you have to realize like you have to change your identity. You have to completely shed one identity, and in doing so, lots of them lose all of the lessons along with that identity, but they're highly applicable. Like when you there's just I haven't found that the average person that was not involved in collegiate sports, very rarely have they woken up at 5 a.m., hit a PR, and then gone to chemistry before 8 o'clock.
Yep.
And that's a skill. And when you leave your sport, you often forget that. But if you can hold on to some of those same lessons and get into the professional world, then I think it's all the better for you.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Well, on that point, I mean, many founders, right, when they're starting businesses, they face a moment where they almost gave up. Did you ever have one, like maybe it was during football, going to the NFL or anything like that, where you felt like you were about to give up professionally, whether it's sports or business, and how did you push through it?
Um, yeah, I mean, as far as football is concerned, I don't know. That's a great example for me because I did hang it up pretty quickly. By the time I came out of school, I was like 26. I would have been a 27-year-old rookie. And so I went to a couple camps. I went to the Chiefs, I went to the Raiders. But once I didn't stick there, I pretty much hung it up immediately. My wife was pregnant and I needed insurance, and so we didn't keep going, which I think is also important in the world of business is
Right.
not chasing things because they look like you should be doing
Yeah,
it.
knowing when to let go.
But as far as just pushing through things, it's probably now, honestly, because I've gone full time into it. And so right now is when I'm really pushing through stuff to scale it up. And so every day you have to make the choice. You have to make the choice to stay in the game because the more sensible route, honestly, for most entrepreneurs is to just go and work for someone because there are jobs out there that would pay me more this year than I will likely make as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
But long term, they will continue probably to pay a pretty similar amount for quite a while, unless I bite the bullet now and try to scale up and take a shot myself.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, man. Well, one last thing before we kind of switch over to more business focused questions. But for you personally, what's one misconception people often have about like the sales consulting industry, especially around like its value to business and scalability that you'd like to address?
One misconception is, let's see. I don't know if this is exactly what you're looking for, but a lot of times I meet companies, and actually I've spent most of my career in tech, and my consulting I've focused a lot outside of tech. Tech is pretty efficient for the most part, and what I've found is that a lot of the people that I can help most are first-time founders that haven't done it before, that don't know what to do on their sales strategy. They don't know what to say in a demo. They know a lot about their product. They know a lot about how it was built. They're very excited about it, and information can kind of kill their deals sometimes. And so they get into these demos and they want to show everyone how excited they are and how why they should be excited. And they
Mhm.
end up answering questions that weren't asked. And that's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but it's kind of paints the picture of the person, and why I focused away from that is because a lot of these sorts of founders, I feel like I can help them a lot, but they're also usually pre-money. And so if they're pre-money, they usually don't have enough or shouldn't be paying enough to pay for me to come in and do that for them. They should really be doing that themselves to prove out the product market fit.
Mhm.
And then scaling that up and then bringing on someone full time to come in and do the actual sales for them. And so I think one maybe misconception or misstep that I see some founders make is just bringing on a leader too early. when what they need is an individual contributor. But that also poses a problem because anytime you hire an individual contributor, if you are in charge, by nature, you have now become a sales manager. Even if you're a product guy, even if you're a partnership guy, or you have whatever, you're just the money guy. If you've hired that, you also inherently become their manager, and you need to know their KPIs and how they should be successful. But if you were able to do that, you probably would have done it yourself in the first place. So it becomes a little bit of a catch 22,
Yeah.
which is how I was fitting in. It just seems to be way more, it's just a much better fit for me in kind of service-based industries, what I found.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a good transition over to the next thing I want to touch on. So with Halo Sales and Strategy, right? Could you walk us through like the current offer? What is it like the core offer people come to you for? Why do they come to you, and what is it that you specifically help them with?
Sales and go-to-market strategy is the core offer, and it's really me for the most part. We also do marketing. We also do data analytics. We do um, like business development and anything that's outside of my scope or my wheelhouse or outside of my time availability, I subcontract. And so because I've been in tech for a while, I have grown a network of really, really talented people, both in sales and in product, in all sorts of management inside of like just any tech company that have often just an excess of time in especially in these larger companies, and they're willing to work with me on some of that. So it's become a little bit of an agency where I can take, like, you take the McKinseys and the Bains, they're going to do very large scale projects for a company that's 15 million in revenue that wants to go to 30 inside the next 2 years. They're probably not going to pay $9 million to McKinsey to come in and revamp all of that
Right.
stuff. And I don't know what McKinsey charges, but they can come to me and I can help them with a lot of that go-to-market strategy, because you've everybody's heard of the silver wave, that a million billion baby boomer businesses are going on sale.
Yep. Yep.
Some of them are just changing hands. They're changing hands within the company, and so you're seeing some shifts where I have found a cool little niche, because there are companies that are changing hands, and so they have the name, the product market fit, the resources of a 30-year-old company, but they have the energy of a startup. And so they can use our services and they can pay for them, and we can come in and deliver all of that for them. But they're also not going to shut the company down in 6 months or pay you over Venmo if they don't hit a couple sales this month. So that's
Mhm.
kind of where I've focused, and it's been great. I enjoy working with those businesses. Tech, I love tech. Most of my network is in tech, but it can be a little arrogant, and that's really by design. It's pretty efficient, it's pretty cutthroat, and if you're good at it, you can make a lot and you can be very good and applicable in other industries, but there's a lot of value elsewhere.
Cool. Cool. It sounds like sports, man. Cutthroat, and if you're good, you're good. That's how
Yeah,
it goes.
sure.
Oh, good fit there. Cool. So, I guess following that track for you right now as you're growing this business, what do you feel like is the biggest bottleneck for you to growth?
Bottleneck to growth. For me, it's been back end stuff. So I've had the connections. I haven't, all of my business up to January was all word of mouth. And so now that I'm scaling it up, it's building back end stuff where, yeah, I can go and I can meet 30 founders in a room. Um, but they're going to ask for, in the scope of work, they're going to ask for references and website and all of this stuff that I didn't necessarily have built out in, or like I didn't have a capability statement or already written out. And so just doing a lot of the back end stuff, creating a content library is something I'm still working on. I've started writing. I still need to do the video and just a bunch of that stuff. It's more just the monotonous stuff to make sure the back end looks like the front end. Because I feel like once I get in front of people, that it makes sense. And it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down on whether I can help and whether they're looking for what I can provide. But getting to the right people is kind of what I'm working on now.
Got it. Cool. So for our listeners who are listening, right? Anybody who's starting their own business, whether it's similar industry or not, right? If you had to identify one thing that right now, if you were to solve, would make the biggest impact, would you say it's the back end, fixing the back end, or is there anything else?
Mm, yeah, that's probably it.
Okay. And my friend likes to call it the magic wand solution, right? If you had a magic wand, you wave it. What's the one thing you want fixed? And for you, it's back end right now.
Yeah, that would be all, it'd be content, really. It'd be all just setting up all of the content
Mhm.
to create the brand. Because I know who I am, not everybody else does. And that's probably been the number one issue is like the network that I have. I haven't had a specific ask for them. And so while it is a solid network, until you have a specific ask, it's like there's that saying when if you can read and you choose not to, you have no advantage over the person that can't read. And
Right.
if you have a network and you don't know what to talk to them about, it's the same as not having one.
That's a great analogy, man. Great analogy. So if you had unlimited resources right now, like unlimited people, skill sets, whatever you wanted access to, what would you implement immediately, starting today? What would be the first thing you'd do?
If I had unlimited resources in the company,
In general, you
in
had
general, I'd stop
all
working. I'd
well,
just
okay.
I'd live in Hawaii.
Besides unlimited money, unlimited resources to grow the business.
If I had unlimited resources to grow the business, I would I'd create a larger subcontractor network and I would go more towards the brand strategy.
Hmm. What do you mean by that?
So again, I realized that up to now, the majority of what I have done, I've done a little bit of subcontracting stuff. The majority of what I have done, my time is my money. As a consultant, my time has been my money, and I realize that it's pretty unlikely again that I will get to what I'm looking for so long as I'm tied one to one. And so I'm not looking to build a kingdom or anything like that. I'm not looking for you just a massive amount of employees to like put on like in a letter to my mom and say, look, I made it. What I do recognize though is that in order for me to get to the level that I'm looking for from a revenue perspective, I can't be the only one pulling in that direction. It's a great way to build a lifestyle business, and you can make a very good living just doing fractional work. And um, you could be a hired gun, you can do consulting, but the reason I got into entrepreneurship and ownership was to create a lever that would allow me to detach my time from my money. Um, However, there is still the entity that needs to grow. If I can grow that through a brand strategy, then that would help. And then I could create more of a subcontractor network where I can become, or the company Halo can become a source for all of the things that we've talked about, for analytics, for go-to-market strategy, for sales, for marketing, all of those things. And then it can grow through there. And then I just step more into an just a CEO model where I'm commanding
Right.
all of again, the go-to-market strategy. Until that's the case, it's just tied one to one to my time.
Right. So get you to the point where you're working, you own the business, not working in the business is what
Exactly.
exactly. Cool. Cool. Well, let's go lightning round, just kind of closing up things. Three questions, we'll go back to back.
That's
Number
here.
one, what's one tool or resource, maybe a tactic or something like that, that you feel like has been a game changer for Halo?
AI, for sure. Stuff that would take me hours years ago. Um, I can do in literally seconds. So writing my SOWs, writing the processes, even writing rules of engagement for companies, like so much of it is in there that I can just query that out. It's almost always my first and my second to last pass on anything that I send over, where I'll have it give me, I'll prompt it to give me the initial place to start so I don't have to do a bunch of it. I'll run it through after I alter it, and then I'll change it at the end to make sure it's in my voice and that I'm the last eyes that see on it. I never send over anything that I haven't seen and gone through entirely for the last time from AI, but that has been a total game changer, and It's honestly one way that, that lever has lengthened quite a bit, like the decoupling your time from your money. That's
Mhm.
definitely done more. It's still tied together, but the knot is loose.
Yeah, yeah, I get you, man. AI is incredible right now. We use it.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. What's the best piece of advice you've received from a leader that you still apply today?
Don't hoard information.
That's
Um,
you're gonna have to explain that one.
so there is a tendency, especially in consulting, from what I've seen, to believe that everything needs to be paid for, that the secret sauce, like that you own your secret sauce, you got to make sure that you're creating value and that you're creating transactions everywhere. And what I have found is that like a lot of this stuff, like I'll for many of these companies, I send over the entire plan that I'm about to implement. And I think they would pay for it, frankly. That companies say, like, we have an initial meeting, and usually I charge for the initial meeting, but we'll have an initial meeting. Um, they'll tell me all their problems. I'll usually send over an entire blueprint on here's what I would do. And they could take that and they could go shop it and they could probably find it cheaper. But if that's the only value that you bring to a company as a consultant is that plan and they have to figure out how to do it, I think you're gonna get replaced really quickly. If all of your knowledge can be written down in an hour, then the value prop is probably just not there, and you're gonna set yourself up for failure in the future. And so I give a lot away for free. I feel like with people that just ask me to do that, and so that's probably what I would say is don't hoard information because what I found early on in my career. Even you take starting as an SDR. You have people that when they start, they learn a little bit and they want to hold on to it. Maybe they found a specific lead source, maybe they found a report, whatever it is that gives them an edge up on everybody else. When you
Mhm.
have the people that hoard that information, it's it creates a return, but as soon as other people inevitably find it out, you're starting back from square one.
Right, you
What
lose
I
your
have what I have found is that if you share a lot of those things and you make yourself more valuable to the entire system, not only do they see you as more valuable and prop you up,
Mhm.
you also move on quickly to the next thing. And so I've never found that I'm super thirsty on like competitive advantages because as soon as I find one and I share it a little bit, I know that I'm in my mind, I don't know if it's a mental thing or I'm just moving on to the next thing. And by the time you have caught up to me using what I gave you, I have now gone on to version two. So it creates a pretty natural like stepping stone. So
Subscription. Yeah,
hope that
I
maybe
love
that.
that, man. I had a mentor once tell me you never want to be the linchpin. You want to create multiples of yourself so you can go on and do the next thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right in line. Okay, last one here for you, man. You being a founder, the experience you have, what advice would you give to anybody else who's looking to start, whether it's a sales consulting job or not, but just going into starting their own business? What advice would you give?
Mine's, I feel like pretty applicable to me. So I'll just tell you the whole story. So recently, so I'm in school at BYU. I have a professor in my entrepreneurship through acquisition class. And the first thing that he shared, maybe one of the first things that he shared was you have to identify if your spouse or your significant other is a gamer. And if they are not, you need to know that and you need to have those discussions, or you will set yourself up for a world of hurt. And so for me, that's probably the biggest thing that I would say. When I had decided to go full bore and start scaling this company, um, I was kind of on the fence. And my wife came to me and she's like, maybe we should sell our house to give you some runway. So, I mean, that's who I'm married to, which is it's great and it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because um I have a partner in my corner. She's not super involved in the business, but I know like the reason I say it's a double-edged sword is because if it doesn't work, it's 100% my fault. Like,
Yeah,
I don't have someone to blame, like I couldn't do it because like I couldn't
yeah,
make it happen. So that's probably the thing that I would say, and it's maybe a little bit off the beaten path because many entrepreneurs, not all, are kind of lone wolves. They're okay with just standing by themselves in the arena. What I have also found though, none of them are alone in the arena. None of like the really successful, unless somebody is there with them,
Mhm.
it's totally unsustainable to do it by yourself. Even if no one sees that they're in there, maybe they're in the locker room with them, something, but like
There's
people
someone there.
offload somewhere. It
There's a
happens.
coach. There's someone in the
Yeah.
corner. Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Just I don't know. I
I
don't
love
know great advice, but that's what I would say.
No, I think it's great, man. I had somebody tell me once, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. I think
Yeah,
that's
very
exactly what
true.
you're talking about. Incredible, man. Well, that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. I want to thank Wesley for sharing his incredible journey and insights with us today. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we'll see you on the next one.